Hello. So welcome to this class. We'll be going to the basics of JavaScript, and shortly before we begin, I want to first of all create a folder that I would be using in my desktop. So I just want to create a folder right here and call it JavaScript. So this JavaScript 1, something like that. I think I already have a JavaScript or something. Let's just do the JavaScript. Then I would go inside. I want to open my code editor here. Like I said in the previous class, I'm using VS Code. So all I just do is command and just code, and with this command VS Code opens in this directory or JavaScript. So that's just a way of opening your code editor from a specific folder, so that the folder will be opened inside of it. So why that's taking a while, so like you see, it's opened in our JavaScript. It opened our JavaScript directory basically. So what I want to do here, just create the normal boilerplate stuff. So I'll just create a first file. Yeah, I want it here. I'll just create it as index.html. Basically, that's our root HTML file. Then I'll create okay, in the HTML file, just do this. Oh, my plugins have not loaded. Why? Okay, yeah. Then I just want to name the document JavaScript class. Okay, so name it JavaScript class, and you already know how to do this one. So basically, there's nothing in the body. So I'll just close this. Then I want to create a folder and I'll name it CSS. Then over here I want to create another folder and name it JS. So this holds our CSS file, this holds our CSS file, this holds our JavaScript files. So in this folder I'm creating a file, I'm calling it style.css, and there's nothing inside of it, so then we'll link it up here. So we'll link our CSS style.css, but since it's not on the root, we just CSS style.css. Yes, save, and in the JavaScript file we'll create a file, then we'll call it script.js, and that's it. So we'll go back to our HTML file. Under here in the body we'll just use a script tag, then inside of it we say source, then we'll link it JS and script.js. That's how we link our files together. So if we open our index.js, let's open it with live server. If you open it with live server, okay, it's opening on the center. I have a browser called the center. So yes, let's make. So it's opened. Keep run. I don't know why it's giving me all these notifications, but it's opened, that's what matters. So let me adjust it so that it's full screen. So I'm using live server here from VS Code to display what's what's coming from our code. So as it is, there's nothing, we've not put anything in the body, we just linked all our files. That's why if you check my center file here, there's nothing, it's just the blue background. So let's go to our style.css and try to do something. So let's body, we want the body to have a background color of FFF. I want it to be white. I don't like that normal default browser. So okay, background color of white. I want the font size of font family to be no. I want the Badana Tahoma sans serif, something like this. Then what else? Padding, I want it to be 0. Margin, I want it to be 0. I'm resetting that. Then so let's just display something on the screen. Number h1 JavaScript class. Sorry, I meant class. JavaScript class. And when we go to our browser and refresh, seems my browser is okay. What I'll just do, I'll just close the live server. It seems it's having issues. I'll just close the live server, then open it directly from the browser. I don't know why it's taking so long. Oh, let me just use another browser. Let me use my Google Chrome. Seems the center is not really centered, so I'll just use Google Chrome. So I'll just open it from here, open with Google Chrome, and yes, Google Chrome came through for us. The center didn't come through for us. So basically that's it. This is what we are doing. So we can further style our h1, or better still, let's just wrap it around a div. There's no need for all this, but I just want to make it look a little bit styled. Then So we're wrapping it around the div, and we're giving the div the class of nav, so we can now pick it up here in our CSS and say nav, and we want to have a background color of let's say black, and we want the text color to be white, and we want the height to be 20 pixel, the width to be auto, then we want then we could just say nav h1, then we could now say width should be, let's say 400 pixel. That way we are doing that so that we'll be able to say margin top 0, left and right. Want it to be auto. This is to put everything in the center, so when we go to, and we would have this okay, 20 pixel was not enough, so the height of 20 pixel was not enough, so let's make it 50. So I think that should be enough. Yes. Okay, I want it to be centered also, top and bottom, so what I'll just do is just margin top, let's put auto too, so that it will be auto up, auto down. I think that should make everything centered. I don't know. Okay, but I'm just contented with this style as it is. So we have a JavaScript class. So now down to the real JavaScript itself, and let's leave CSS and HTML alone. So we are going to our script tag, and we are going to create underneath this, we just create a new div with a class of demo, and you'll see what we can do with JavaScript here. So before we start JavaScript, sometimes while you're writing your code, you might want to make some comments to yourself, like explain something, why you did something, or describe something. They are called comments, and in JavaScript there are two ways of writing comments. The first is by using this double /, and anything you write within this line, this is a comment. It is not executed by the browser, it is seen as a comment. Then there's also a way to write multi-line comments, which is by using this / then asterisk, another asterisk, then then a / sorry, so it helped me close it, but I didn't see that. So with this, anything you write within this, so this is a multi-line comment, so this is also a comment, and this also. So all these are comments, and they're treated as comments while you're writing your code, so the browser doesn't execute this. So now let's say we want to print something to our page here, apart from something should display here. So how do we go about it? We could just simply say document object model get element by class name, then but let's even make it simpler. This would need to generate different elements, so let's just let's just do it. No, I don't want to make things complicated. Let's give our class a demo, an ID, so that I'll just get it by ID of ID of demo also. So just instead of getting by class name, sorry, my bad, I want to make it as simple as possible. Since our first class, get element by ID, and we'll put the ID, which is demo. So when we do this, we are getting an element. So if we want to check if we really got this element, we can console.log. Console.log is a JavaScript function that helps you log something to the JavaScript console. So say console, this is written console.log. So we'll just copy this whole thing and put it the log, not log, sorry, the log, and put it inside of here. And see, if we go to our page now and we go to this to inspect it, we'll see on the console, let me see, console, let's reload. We'll see we are getting the div element, demo, and class. So this is what is happening from script.js line 7, and if you see this script.js line 7, this is what is bringing that element. So we are logging what is there. So now what we want to do is, let's say we want to display something in that part. So before we go into that, there's something I would do a magic now, then we'll now talk about it. So I'll just talk about what I'm doing. Let's say we'll let tag equals this, or let's not go into that yet. I wanted to declare a variable, but we could just say dot. We can just dot inner HTML, and we'll just want it to display hello world. So this is what we just did. We said we got our demo tag. We got our demo tag here, and we are telling it to for HTML to put this text inner.html. This function, this JavaScript function, will now insert this hello world text inside of that tag or that element we've got. So let's go to our browser and we'll see how this comes through. And we see, okay, we are having an error. It's not a function. What did I do wrong? What's okay? Oh, I think I've seen where I made an error. Sorry, not inner.html, right? I'm not supposed to do this. Inner.html equal to then the string hello world. Sorry, my bad. So now when we go to our browser, what we have is hello world being displayed, and if we try to inspect where the hello world is coming from, the element, we'll see that we have our body, and inside of our body we have two, okay, the spelling of the hello is not even correct, but basically we have this ID with demo, and inside of it there's hello world already. So this hello world was not inserted with our HTML. As you can see, it's empty. We inserted that with our JavaScript. And let me correct this right now. So basically that is a simple use of JavaScript to dynamically impute elements, impute text into an HTML tag. So now, how do we, now that we've started our class, we want to talk about one of the basic building blocks of any programming language, which is variables. I'd wanted to go into it just now, but just had to tell myself not to go into it. So I'll just comment this out, and maybe as we're going so that you have it, but I'll just comment it out. So variables, what are variables? Variables are ways in which you can actually save data, save things in another, just a way of storing items. Just imagine a box, and you put, let's say, your shoes inside of a box. Then on the back of the box you now write shoes. So that's actually how variables are. They are a way of storing information, data and stuff and things when you're programming. So for instance, if let's say I want to store the number, I want to store shoes, and like I just gave the example, I could store these shoes in a variable. So how do we go about it? So we could say let. There are three ways to define variables in JavaScript. Actually, we have the let, we have the const, and both let and const are ES6. So started from 2015, sorry. So I'll just write another comment here, ES6, and then the one that we have that has existed in JavaScript, I'll just write older, and the older way is the var. So as you can see, it's giving me error. So what it means to declare a variable like shoes, say let shoes equals then you can now write your shoe, probably a sandal. So we'll get to strings later, but basically, and another way of declaring variable, you could say a car, and you say BMW, and using the older method you could say cartoons, and probably boondocks. I hope I spelled this well. So basically, this is actually how to declare variables. These two are most recent and came out with ES6, while this is the normal way we declared it before ES6. So what we have here is the variable itself. This is what we are saving. Like I said, this is what is being saved inside the box, and on the body of the box you now write shoes. So that is just that about variables. You're storing this item or these values inside of this variable here. You're storing boondocks in this variable cartoon. So when you say when you want to call a variable, instead of calling shoes again, you could just let's just give an instance. Let's console.log. Let's log shoes, and you see what will happen. So here we are calling the variable shoes, and we are logging it to the console. Let's go and inspect. When we refresh, we go to our console, we'll see sandal, because we are logging shoes. So it's not showing shoe here, rather it's showing sandal. So let's even see console.log. What do we have there? We have car. You see, we have BMW, because basically we have defined BMW here as car. So we can as well go and console.log. You see, you can actually debug with the browser and also debug with your code editor, and it just gives you the same the same answer because we are actually running the same JavaScript file. So we can copy this. I just want to copy this. And say console.log cartoon, and if you go to the console and refresh, you'll see boondocks. If you notice something, that car we logged disappeared because whatever we do here, with every refresh it disappears. That's the difference between when it's coming from a JavaScript file behind and when you are debugging live. So you can see, even though we refresh 1,000 times, because it's coming from the code, it's the JavaScript file, it doesn't disappear. But if you say console.log car, it will give us BMW. Then if you refresh, it disappears. That is that about that. So now that is, I hope that you can understand that as variables. And variables do not just store strings. These are strings because anything variables also store numbers. We'll go into strings shortly, but so we can see numbers. Let's numbers equal 48, and you see we are able to save numbers. We're able to see which this is actually would say call it integer. We're able to save integers as well. We can save arrays and so many other data types in a variable basically. So now, since we've already talked about it, we just doubled into it, we could just as well talk about it right away. Strings. In JavaScript, there are several data types, and one of them is string. A string is written as such. Anything like this is a string, anything in between quotes. So you could be either a single quote, like this is a string, or double quotes, like we've been doing since this is another string. So both of these are actually strings and will be treated as strings. So we can now save these strings in a variable and say something like let string 1 equals this, and we'll just go back here. Let string 2 equal this. I think I cleared something else. So basically, these are strings. It could contain more than one element, more than one will I say sentence, and contain multiple sentences. And numbers could also be strings. Also, say let number 2 equals then 48. If you notice, this is a string and this is an integer. They are two different things entirely. One is a string, another data type, and another one is an integer. So basically, so that's strings for you. And there are instances where you want to use a double quote instead of a single quote, and vice versa. Let's, for instance, say you want to say shawarma. Like if you followed our other class, we had we on CSS we did a project on Ade's shawarma. So let's say Ade's shawarma. So let's say we want this to be a string, and we'll now go ahead and put single quotes. What this turns into, it gives us already giving us an error because it can be a string. It's just like saying you're starting a string here, you close it here, then you start writing another thing, and this thing can't be interpreted by JavaScript because it's no longer inside the string block. But to solve this kind of situation, what you could easily do is just put a double quote, and your string is not giving you an error, or it won't break your code. So basically, these are instances where you use strings like this. So let's do something and just put let's take this string and display it inside this our demo tag. We've already done that, something like that before, or better still, let's just use this. Let's add it equals add shawarma, and we could just go about it one way. We could just say document dot get by id, and we put the id as demo, and we can now say dot inner html equal add. So let's see if this works. You see, this shawarma is printed into is put inside of the how do I call it, the div tag we created. So let's say, for instance, we now say we don't want to do it this way, using what we've already learned about variables. Let's say we save this into a variable called, let's this become div1, and save it at this, so we can still perform the same operations on them. We could now come and say something like div1 dot inner html equals add. If you're confused, you could just ask, but basically it's the same thing we did earlier that we're still doing here. So if we come here, we go to our and refresh, it will still give us the same answer. Let's just instead of add, let's make it equal to string 2 and see. You see, this is another string. It's now printed onto the page. So basically, we are dynamically changing the content of that div. Next off, we've talked about strings, and we've talked about integers here, and integers basically are numbers. So let me just integers, they are numbers. They could be floating point numbers like number 2, well, we already have a number 2 here. The number 3 equal 34.5. So this is equally an integer. Let me bring everything together so that we just understand what we are doing. So basically, this is another way to save string. And I forgot to mention the difference between var, which is the older way of writing of declaring variables, and the let and const is once you declare a variable with let, you cannot redeclare another variable with that same thing. Let's say, for instance, I want to now say let shoes equal Gushi. I think I spelled it right. We can't do this. We can't do this. It's not possible because we've already declared it here. Although we can still come here and say want to change the value of shoe from sandal to Gushi. It's possible, but we can't declare shoe as another variable afresh again. But if it was var we used, like let's say we come and say var cartoons, you see we can actually still, sorry I'm not spelling it correctly this time, we can actually still replace, we declare it and give it another variable to store without it giving us even an error. The value of cartoons here is different from cartoons here, and we just declared it and change it, but we can't do that with let it to give us an error. The same thing with const. Const is just like saying constant, just like that's the way I just look at it. Maybe they're just trying to abbreviate constant. That's actually a constant, and a constant is used in such a way that you cannot change the value you've already saved inside of it. Like we've saved BMW, we cannot change it to, let's say, Camry, Toyota. We cannot come here and say car equals Toyota. It will give us an error. Just let's go to our console and you see what I'm talking about. Uncut error, assignment to a constant variable. We cannot assign to a constant variable. It will give us an error. So basically that is just, I skipped that earlier when we were talking about let, const and var, and I would like to clarify it before we proceed. So let's just put that at the back of our mind and proceed. So we've talked about numbers, integers, and we talked about floating point numbers and this. So now I would like us to, before we finish this class, because it's getting too long already, talk about expressions. Expressions or mathematical expressions in sense of it. So we could actually do some magic with JavaScript, and I would like to do a multi-line comment to prove this to you. Why does it give me this extra? Okay, so yeah, addition, if you want to add between two numbers, what we use is so let me just give you a title: operators. We use the addition operators to add, which is the plus. Let me just put it here. To subtract, we use the minus, normal minus that you normally use. To multiply, we use the asterisk. To divide, we use the forward slash. Then to there's what's called the modulus that gives you the remainder. Maybe I'll show how it is used. Modulus operator, and we use the percentage for that. So basically these are how we are able to do some mathematical expressions with JavaScript. So let me give you an example. So let's say create a variable, we'll call it sum, and we want to sum up two numbers. Let's say 34 plus 24. So this is an expression, and we could get the answer by consoling and plugging it to the console. and when we save we can go back to page and you see it's 58. There are two things I'm seeing on the log. Okay, I will just comment them out so that our log would be free. So this is an expression. So we could also do subtraction for it. I wouldn't want to type too much again. Do subtraction, and when we go to our browser we see it's 10. We could do a division. And we get 1.4. And when we do a multiplication, we get 816. And the modulus operator, like I said, we could use it. It gives you the remainder. So after the division between this, 34 divided by this is supposed to give you 1, because it goes in 1, then there is a remainder of, I don't know. So to tell you the remainder, so let's just do that and see what's going to give us as the remainder. That will be enlightening for me. That's 10. Exactly, the remainder will be 10. So it's 1, it goes in 1 and you have 10 remainder. And that's what the modulus operator is there for. So basically, that's that about expressions. And I wouldn't want to choke you too much in one video. I'd like you to go through it. Then in the next video we'll be talking about comparison operators and go into functions and do some cool stuff with JavaScript. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.